Johnson was telling us, let my people go the other day. Well, let's expand on that, shall we? It talks about the 27 and Britain the 28th, but 27. And yet the New Testament's got 27 books. It talks about 39 billion pounds being paid to Europe. And yet 39 books in the Old Testament. So I'm thinking that there's a lot of symbolism going on here, and biblical symbolism. So if you look at not a hoof shall be left behind, that's what I think should be happening with this going out of Europe. Shouldn't be paying any money to Europe. Take the camera back a little bit, it's a bit too close. So I'm thinking that we need to be paid, right? Because they spoiled the Egyptians, yeah? So if we want to take a biblical analysis a bit further, what about these 10 plagues on Egypt? Well, they've had hail and fire. I can't say they've had locusts everywhere. But sexual diseases are on the rise, and you've got things like murder going on. People have been slaughtered in France with machine guns, but they've been slaughtered here, haven't they? So the thing is, love thy neighbour as thyself. So Germany and France and all being our neighbour, we're supposed to be kind to the stranger. So we should open the doors. I agree with letting the strangers in. You know, opening the doors, being welcoming, and certainly bringing those in who can do the work we can't do. And I believe that's always been the case. If you've got some people like in whatever countries being persecuted, they should come into our country. For instance, there was a Muslim became a Christian being persecuted, and yesterday I said on the news that they were stopping him emigrating, or stopping him seeking asylum, because he was arguing about persecution because he was now a Christian, right? And somebody said to him, oh, the Christian religion is not peaceful, so you can't come to this country because you converted to Christianity. What a load of nonsense. He quoted from Book of Revelation. Now the point is, the Book of Revelation is not only symbolic, it's God who wields the sword of justice there, not the Christians. If you're talking about the idea of Armageddon and a warfare, that warfare is not the Christians fighting a physical war. There's only the spiritual war which the Christians fight. And Armageddon is talking about where the kings of the East rise up, which could be Iran. I mean, it could be. I mean, India's just been doing wars of late. They've got nuclear bombs. I mean, there's North Korea and China. What kings of the East? You know. So it doesn't say that we're going to be fighting a physical war, but Jesus said to put away your swords. And so it's a peaceful faith we've got. When it says, I will kill your children with death, and such like Book of Revelation, it's talking about what God is doing, and sometimes it's symbolic. There's a lot of references to symbolism. It talks about the idea of children sometimes being like synagogue of Satan. It's symbolic. There's all sorts of symbolic stuff. The devil chained for 1,000 years, for instance. The seven-headed beast, symbolic of something. In the Old Testament, in Daniel, there was a symbolism of the horns. They represented powers. So when Daniel was mentioned as one of the horns which were to arise, a power which would arise, Alexander the Great is mentioned there. Also, the kingdom divided from Nebuchadnezzar and such like. It's all there in symbolism, and numbers are given as well. We could say that Oliver Cromwell, the time from Oliver Cromwell, was the numbers given for fire, spitting out fire, brimstone and smoke for the, a year, a day, a month and an hour, which comes to 397 days if you take an hour, a day and a month. And Oliver Cromwell started democracy. It's what we call the mother of all our parliaments. And Oliver Cromwell fought the war with cannons to great effect. Now, cannons were never used in such a way until Cromwell organised them. And when Cromwell organised them, there wasn't a castle in the country which would protect you. So the warfare was transformed from that point. And the thing is, with Oliver Cromwell, right, the 397 years since Cromwell and his war, civil war, if we were to take the time from that as being shooting out fire, brimstone and smoke from Revelation chapter 9, and what I'm about to do with Armageddon, 397 would be symbolic of 397 years, because you take one day represents 1 year in the Bible. In Ezekiel chapter 4 verse 6 for reference for that. So if 1 day equals 1 year, then that takes us up close to the end of the world time, I suppose. It's an approximate time, 2040, 2050, 2060, somewhere around there, if we take those times and dates. But the thing is, also the time of 150 days is given, which is 150 years, which is for the 5 months. 5 threes are 15, 150 days, 150 years. For when they spat out fire, brimstone and smoke, but having a breastplate of iron, and it says wings, and making a sound of many chariots like aeroplanes. That Armageddon warfare, again, it's not symbolic of Christians. They're not going to war. That's what goes on. That's what we're trying to prevent. That's what we're trying to stop. Jesus said, follow peace with all men and holiness, without which no man shall see the Lord. So it's a peaceful faith and peaceful religion. If anybody tries to attack that, they should be taken to court and they should be challenged on it, especially if it's coming from a parliament figure. And they need to be thrown out of their job. So now when we talk about the we're talking about this Brexit, this let my people go thing, it's interesting that there's a lot of symbolism around the parliament in Europe, because the United Nations has got buildings and is actually based on the Tower of Babel, and there's been nothing but babble going on ever since, especially with Brexit. Babble, 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 confusion of languages. The Tower of Babel, which is what it's based on, is that there's now confusion of politics. The people say let us go out of Europe, and they say no, babble, 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 confusion, oh, we need to do this deal and that deal and some other deal. The people have spoken. They've said, let's get out. The seven-headed beast, if you want more symbolism, it talks about the woman on the beast, if you look outside the United Nations, the statue. Now, the seven-headed beast, one of his heads gets wounded, but then gets healed. And you could say Brexit, it's like that, You're going out of the pagan idea of what's going on. Now, he just said, there'd be a special place in hell, that politician, for those who are advocating, the Brexit. Well, he's talking to the majority of the British people then, Special place in hell, methinks it is the other way around. And the popular people, the popular rising of the popular people, the popular choice is democracy. And whether for good or ill, when the nation chooses something, you have to abide by what the people say. That's what the majority have said. So we need to do a Brexit. We need to get out. but we do it with love and kindness. But we don't go giving them £39 billion. In fact, I think we're owed about 7 or 8 billion or something, Farage said. And we should spoil the Egyptians, and not a hoof should be left behind, if you want to take it that. Brexit at this moment. So I wanted to have a look at a few notes and have a little look, see what's going on with all this Bible symbolism, biblical symbolism, you know. And I'm wondering if there's something in it, because 27, you know, nations at the moment, 39 billion, 39 Old Testament books. I don't know. I wonder if there's something going on there. Just have a quick look at my notes here a minute. So, right, okay, 10 plagues. Weather, they've had bad weather. They've had hail and lightning and all kinds of stuff. They had a lot of snow, didn't they, this winter? But nothing of any supernatural significance. I could think of. They did have about 7 or 8 feet of snow when we had a lovely winter, actually. Can't think of anything else. I haven't seen any locusts running around the place. 39 billion, as I said, the 27, the countryside. I can't see, I can't read my own writing, yeah? Okay, I can't see anything. Parliament, voices, as I say, they're supposed to be having another vote tomorrow to do with hard Brexit, soft Brexit, that kind of stuff, which is ridiculous. We've already said we need to get out. Yeah, well, as I say, there's always the idea of changing times and laws. Now there's a beast is going to arise, an antichrist, some people think, which will actually think to change times and laws, which is, well, if it comes to that would be something serious. But I must admit, they do change our laws. They try to force their laws on us, didn't they? Well, when you think about it, we have always had democracy, right? We've always had our own laws, and we've always voted on our own things, right? And I'm thinking, well, since we voted on our own things, this is what's important, and this is the point I want to make. If we've always voted on our own things, right, there's going to be a power at some point, an antichrist, okay, which would arise, like a new world order, and it will try to impose new laws and think to change times. Now I'm thinking, okay, they changed the times, they've done that. Okay, they've tried to change some of the times, okay. From the thing is, they're changing the times and the laws. The laws are certainly being changed, because the times, if you want, like, we're 1 hour behind, right? Europe. It don't mean that, yeah? Okay, right. If you want to think about changing laws, it does mean laws which have existed, okay, for centuries, for hundreds of years. What's that law? Okay, the law states that you know, criminals, for instance, should have no vote, right? And yet Parliament, which is not elected by our people, okay, says prisoners can have a vote, okay? Or things like the paedophiles, right? They can have their sentences kind of squashed, their record squashed, right? Britain says no, we need to keep a record of them. We want to see who they are. You don't get rid of them, okay? There's all kinds of laws which the British people, okay, have voted for and want and keep, and we elect the politicians. Now, Cromwell started by having a war, right, against the king with one-man rules. They want United Nations to be like a one-man rule, and one man in charge of it. Okay, one world peace, one world religion, one world government, one world everything. But what happens is, when that one world starts changing times and laws, right, when that starts attacking, say, the Christian faith, you can't go anywhere if the whole world is going after one law, one order, one way of doing things. Now, there's a one faith in the Bible. There is a one body of Christ. When you look at the Christian faith, there is a one universal faith and hope and salvation, one way to heaven through Jesus. Jesus Christ said, I am the way, the truth and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. And there's only one mediator with the Father. There's only one lawyer. Yeah, but certainly there's not one world. There's not going to be one world government. When they do get that, God will end the world, because you can't have a dictatorship from one world where there's no diversity, no change, where there's no for instance, if you bring a law against the Christians, they try to ban Christians from preaching, like they've tried doing in some places, or they tried to say ban for homeschooling inside of things, which is an otherwise educated. If they try to make everything uniform, you become like communist, totalitarian dictatorship, right? So that you can't have individualism. Everything becomes uniform. Well, God will end the world when that happens, okay? The Bible has to be preached in all the world, but not just preached, but it has to be practiced in all the world. That's what's important. If you don't have a practice of your Christian faith, as well as the preaching of it, then you've got a serious problem on your hands. So you've got to be able to practice your Christian faith, put it into practice, as well as to have it as a belief. Just got to do a little bit of work a minute while I'm hopping around here. Probably have to just leave it at that. But this one world government thing is a big threat, and at the moment, fortunately God's put barriers around the world by putting seas and divided the land from the seas, and that's been a good thing for us, because by doing that it's actually kept nations apart as he designed it to be. It can't all be one world, one government, one people. You have to have diversity. Right. Just gonna go and sort out a few of these sheep for my next job. You can have a look at my sheep if you want to. Have a look at the lamb. I'll take you in to have a look at something for me. Right then, we'll just keep the camera rolling then, and yeah. Is the camera still rolling? Keep it rolling then. When did you switch it off? You haven't? Alright, good. Let's have a look. See if it's still there. It is still rolling. Right then, go and have a look. Those sheep. Right, have a look. There you are. There's a little pet lamb there. Come here. Yep, which that one gone? Come here. Come on, you have that one. Yeah. Ah, right down there. There's another pet lamb here somewhere. Right. Let's have a look at you. Want some more? Right, let's go and have a look for your sister here somewhere. Should be over here somewhere. Let's go and have a look. Yeah. Hiding in there. Someplace. Yeah, here somewhere.